Making time for anything is challenging. Making time for your artwork can be even more so when everything else seems to have higher priority. When you are looking for more time in your life to be creative, you have to look at all of your habits. It starts with looking at how you're spending your time currently and figuring out, what is my priority with life? Do I want to make art? Do I want to do these other things? And where can I fit in art making time within the 24 hours I've got in a day? You have lots of responsibilities, you've got lots of work to do, you have lots of other hobbies that you want to give your attention, but when it comes to artwork, if you're not giving it the time, it just doesn't happen. Your materials are dusty on a desk somewhere and they're never touched, and that just feels terrible, right? It just doesn't feel good. You're looking for more time with your artwork in your everyday life, or at least once a week, and today I'm going to show you how to find that time. Making time for your art means making time for yourself, and if you don't have time for yourself, then you have priorities that need reshuffling. If you want to be making more art and you feel like you have no time at all, this episode's for you. This is Brushwork. Feel like you've had no time at all to make a painting, if you have no time to draw, but you really, really want to, you clicked on this video, then this episode's for you. Making time for your art starts with making time for yourself, and in order to find that flexible time in your schedule, we have to do a couple of exercises. For this to work, you need to get a piece of paper and a pencil. You can do this on your phone too, but I prefer to write it down physically. Doing it in your sketchbook will be a nice reminder every time you go back to that sketchbook and see, oh yeah, this is what I wanted with my life. I want to make more art. First things first, we need to think about our mindset. What is your main goal here? Your goal is to make more time to make art. If you feel like you have no time to make art now, what does that mean? It means you have to reshuffle your priorities so that art making is higher up than it used to be. It's that simple. So once you have that idea in your head, you need to figure out, okay, what can be deprioritized so creativity can come into my life or even come back into your life? The first thing I want you to think about is, how do you want to be making art? I'm approaching this as if you perhaps have an art practice already, or maybe you are starting from scratch, but think about, what do you really want your art making to look like? Right now, I am a gouache painter. I have an oil painting behind me, but I am really focused on making gouache paintings. And so for me, that means I need to have a space set up near me that I can just jump into art making at any time. And for gouache painting, that means I need to have my painting surfaces out and ready. I need my brushes to be clean and prepared. I need my palette to be on the table and opened up. I need all of my tubes of color ready to go, easy to access. When you are thinking about making time for creativity, doing some of the front load work of being prepared to make art is going to dramatically increase the likelihood that you will actually spend time working on your artwork. I have in my studio a table that is my gouache table, and I have all my materials set out, and nothing else goes on that table except for my painting materials. That way, when I'm like, okay, it is whatever time of day it is that I want to make art, I can just go to the table, sit in the chair, and start painting. When you remove the friction to create from your life, you are going to have more opportunities to create, and that is going to launch your creativity forward and actually make it happen. You won't be like, oh, I want to paint, but I have to get out all the materials, and the prep steps take so much time. Having it out and ready is going to be so much better for actually moving forward. So in this exercise we're going to do, I want you to take a minute, and you're going to pause this episode, to write down how you want your art making process to look like. Do you want to be painting at a table? Do you want to be painting at an easel? Do you want to be sketching out in a field? Do you want to be working on Procreate on a tablet at a coffee shop? Write down exactly what it looks like to make your creativity. I'm going to pause a couple seconds here. Go ahead and pause the episode and then press play again when you're ready. Okay, welcome back. This is what my description looks like, my visualization exercise, and I'm doing this one for oil painting. When I think about what I really want for oil painting, I have this nice big space. For me, this is my garage. In my studio, I've got a painting in progress on the wall. And then I've got my big table set up, and all of the colors for my current piece are laid out and ready for me. I've got 5 brushes that I like to use for this piece, and they're clean and ready to go on the table. I've got my linseed oil in a little squeezy bottle. I've got my palette knives that are clean. I've got a stack of rags that are fresh, and there's no clutter around me. In my studio, I have a timer that lets me see when an hour has gone by, and I have really nice lighting in this space. It's daytime. My apron is hung up on the wall. It's ready for me to put on immediately. Everything is tidy in the studio. And when I go into the studio, I have no distractions. There's some music playing, but my phone is on silent. If your fantasy looked like this, great. But if it didn't, go back and add more details. Think about time of day. Think about where you're going to be. Think about what's happening before and also after your creation time and how you're going to feel. Like, are you coming into your creation time full of anxiety, or are you coming into it just super calm? Whatever feels right, whatever the dream moment is, write that down. Be as detailed as you like. Okay, let's move on. Your next step is to think about, how do I make this happen? This exercise has 2 steps. The first step is to download or sketch out a week-long calendar, Sunday through Monday, and you're going to write everything that you intend to do in a normal week on this day. I know some people have weeks that never look the same in 2 ways, but try to find the things that happen every single day on every single week that are in repeat. We have some things that we do all the time. It's grocery stores, it's washing our hair, it's going to bed. There's some things that repeat. So write everything down that you can think of, and I'm going to show you what mine looks like here in a second. In this second exercise, writing out your weekly calendar, even now you might notice spaces where you can put in art making time into your life. Here in this calendar that you've laid out in front of you, I want you to look at things that could be consolidated. Can you move things around so that they make more sense for time-wise? And location-wise, are you doing a lot of commuting? Make sure you're writing down your commuting hours. I used to commute 45 minutes, and that took up a lot of time. So make sure you're writing that into your calendar also. Are there things that you do every week that you no longer want to do and don't have to do? Figure out how you can remove those from your schedule. Just by looking at your typical weekly schedule, you might start to see, okay, here on this day at this time, I could put in a half an hour of artwork. And sometimes that's plenty. Sometimes that's all the artwork you want to do in a day. Try to find moments in your schedule here that you can make art. Find moments where maybe you can do art with another person. You can make it a social time. You'll notice on my calendar, I had social hours put in. Maybe your social time is painting with a friend. Maybe your social time is doing cross-stitchings while gossiping. Look for opportunities where you can put art into your schedule for things that you're already doing. First things first is you're going to write down what your weeks look like in a calendar like this. It doesn't have to be exactly what happens every week, but anything that's repeating or generally repeats every week. Maybe you have a class that happens every other week, put that down in this. We'll see mine here. This is very rough. It doesn't have to be like hour by hour, but you do want to have it in its time blocks. So for me, this is what my week typically looks like. It's never exactly like this, but it's pretty close. So for me on Mondays, that's a content creation day. The whole day I work on recording this episode. I work on editing the episode. I'll have a lunch break, usually around noon or so. And then in the evenings, I do the marketing. I work on my email list. I work on my website. I work on any sort of content creation. It is a heavy computer day for me. I try to be done with my days around 6 p.m. and by 8 o'clock, I make sure I'm done because I hate working after 8 p.m. It's my least favorite thing. You'll notice that on all of my days, I am up and getting ready and having breakfast by 8 a.m. I try to wake up the same times every day. That's just something I like to do. Life is going to be different for you. Do the hours that work for you. If you're someone who's up at 5 a.m. because you have your first meeting at 5:30, you work East Coast hours, write that down. Make that work out. You'll notice that I have like certain days that look like repeats of each other. So Mondays are very unique, but on Tuesdays, I launch the podcast in the morning and then I stream on Twitch. For me, my painting time happens online. I only have one day a week where I'm painting solo, and that's usually on Fridays. I like to have most of my painting time while I'm streaming, while I'm doing my artwork on Twitch, because it keeps me more focused. And that's one way that you can create more time for your artwork by being more public with it, by having people watch you make art. This is a great way to get more art time, but that's not what this episode's about. Things that are important to write down when you're doing your week timeline here. Write down your work schedule, write down your breaks, write down what happens. Like in your work schedule, do you have meetings in the morning or are you doing more non-speaking things? Notice where you're having more meeting heavy days, where you're having more typing heavy days, where you're doing more physical labor sort of days. Write down your hours as accurately as you can. This is going to change season to season, so do it for the season that's happening right now. You'll notice in my week, I have on Friday mornings an open box time. And for me, that just means I'm scheduling appointments there. I'm scheduling any sort of meetings I need there. That's time that I never plan things in directly that I want to happen every single week, but it's the catch-all space. I also have noted off my days off. Maybe you have a couple mornings off, maybe you have half days, maybe you have no days off. But if you do have them, write them down here in the schedule. All right, go ahead and pause the episode and finish filling out your paper schedule. You can write it down, you can have it in a digital form. I made this on Canva. I'll put a link to this blank one so you can have it. But when you're ready to go, press resume. My third exercise that I have for you today is going to be the most intense, and it takes a week to do. This is called time tracking. Time tracking is intensive, but it's going to show you exactly how you spend your time. If you've written out your schedule and you're like, okay, I see where I can have art making time, or maybe I don't see any art making time, it's going to tell you exactly what happens during your days that is different than what you think happens during your days. This is what you're going to do. You're going to do this for a whole week from starting today until this time next week. Every hour, on the hour, you're going to go into your phone and you're going to write down what happened during that hour. What you're doing here is recording what you've done during the day in its hyper specificity. You're going to write down, today at 2:16 p.m. I recorded this episode and I made the Canva template and I got my studio ready to record the episode. And an hour from now, I'll be like, I spent 45 minutes editing this episode and putting things together, and I also got some water. It's going to be tedious, but what this tracking is going to teach you is how specifically you're spending your time and what you think is happening, what you've planned out on your schedule is actually doing. Maybe you're someone like me who makes videos and you're like, okay, I record a video for half an hour and then I edit the video for an hour and then I post it to Instagram or YouTube or whatever for 25 minutes after that and I'm done. But then you go and you start doing this tracking and you've learned, oh no, it doesn't take me 2.5 hours to make an episode. It actually takes me 4 hours to make an episode because I've been spending that much time editing and things. You're going to have realizations like this where it's like, I'm spending more time or a lot less time doing these projects than I thought I was. It's going to be a revelation. It's going to be a bit of a rude awakening. And in order to do this, in order to get the full extent of what is happening in your reality, you've got to be writing down things every hour. Some people say do it every 15 minutes. That doesn't work for my life. Try it every hour. Set a timer that from 8 a.m. or whenever you wake up for during your entire workday until you go to bed, write down what happened during that time. At the end of each day, I also highly recommend that you go into your time tracking app on your phone where it tells you how much time you spent on your phone and where you spent it, and adding that information to your day at the end of each day. Do this for 7 days in a row. And then at the end of day 7, you're going to look at the results and you're going to see where you've been spending your time. It's really, really good for learning where you can put art back into your life. Because when you start to see the actual habits and the truth of where you're spending your time, you can move things around and consolidate and start to really be intentional about where you're spending your time and where you're spending your creative energies. Doing these 3 exercises is going to show you where you can put art into your life. And it's going to show you where your priorities are. After you've done these exercises, you now need to protect the new time that you have with your art. And you need to treat your art making time as something holy, something sacred. When someone is like, hey, can you help me out with this thing? And that time is your art making time, you're going to tell them no. When someone is like, ooh, I can get you in for an appointment at this time and that time is your art making time, you have to say no. You have to be really strict about, no, my creative time is important to me. It's how I express myself. It's how I get my work done, and it's how I actually get to make art when you haven't been able to in the past. Your artwork is important. People need to see it. You need to see it. You need to make it. Make it a priority and get that art time into your life. You can do it. You can find time. I believe in you. And if you need help finding time, I'm so happy to talk to you about your schedule. I would love to chat with you. Send me a message or join the Arts and Crafts table, and we can talk about timelines and how to finagle a schedule so that the visualization you did at the very beginning of this episode can become your reality within a week. Wouldn't that be exciting? Don't you want to make art time in your life? I know you do. I know you do. And we can make this happen. So good luck. Let me know what sort of aha moments showed up after you did this tracking and after you did your visualization and after you figured out what was happening in your life versus what you thought was happening in your life with your weekly schedule. You got this. It's going to be great. All right. Make good choices, everyone. Thanks for listening to Brushwork Podcast. My name is Stephanie Scott. You can find me on Instagram at stephaniescott.art. And that's all, folks. I hope you have a great day. Let's make some art together.